I would like to call this regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners to order. If you'll please stand and join me in a moment of silence before we go into the Pledge of Allegiance. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Welcome. So we'll begin the organizational part of the meeting. Our first order of business will be the election of the chair for the 2021-2022 Board of Commissioners term. The board can vote by either ballot, raising of the hand, and before we begin, if the board decides to vote by ballot, I would ask that you sign the ballot. By North Carolina Public Records, we do have to have those ballots signed. So I'll first take a motion to determine how the board would like to take a vote on the chair. Any motion?
Madam Chair, move to vote by ballot.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, if you'll find the ballot in your packet, vote, and then I'll come around. Make sure you sign it and I can grab it.
Yes.
Okay. All right, there were 5 votes for Commissioner Smith to be, 4 for, shoot. I didn't do math. So there were 5 votes for Commissioner Smith and 2 for Mr. Sharp, so Mr. Smith will be chair. At this time, if we can take a vote for our vice chair, is there a vote for how we would like to vote for the vice chair?
Madam Barrister, move to use the ballot.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then if you'll do the same thing, whichever. Okay, there were 6 votes for Ariana LaValle, so Ms. LaValle will be the upcoming vice chair. Thank you very much. We will now move on to the approval of the resolution fixing the time, date, and place for our regular meetings for the upcoming year. We are suggesting that we continue the same place and time for this year due to the coronavirus still and the renovations at the government center. So what we're suggesting is to have the first meeting at 6 p.m. to be held at the McSwain Center, and then our second meeting to be held at the Civic Center, so that way we can coordinate with the planning board and have all of our public hearings at the Civic Center. So at this time, I'll ask that we, is there a motion to adopt that resolution?
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. The last order of business will be for the board to approve the official bonds for the upcoming year. North Carolina law requires that the board approve and adopt the official bonds for the sheriff in the amount of $25,000, the register of deeds in the amount of $50,000, and for every other officer in the county that provides for the faithful performance of his or her duties, including the tax administrator and the finance officer and any employee who handles $100 or more. Any motions?
Madam Barrister, move to approve the annual official bonds.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. I'll turn the meeting over.
Thank you, Madam Barrister, for convening that. We appreciate it very much. Is there any additional agenda items to add? Seeing there are none, can I get an approval for the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve tonight's consent agenda.
Motion's been made to approve the consent agenda for this evening. Any discussion? Seeing that there are none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I had a request for the original agenda. I want to offer a motion to remove item 8D under new business.
Motion's been made to remove. What do you wish to do with it, sir?
Remove it
Remove
from
it.
tonight's agenda.
That was, I'm
New
sorry.
business, 8D, resolution
New
supporting,
business 8D,
supporting passage of a North Carolina heartbeat bill.
that's not
Motion.
that's not a local government issue.
It's a resolution.
I understand it's a resolution. It's not one that this board ought to be adopting.
Motion's been made. Any further discussion? Motion's been made to remove the resolution
make it count?
supporting passage of North Carolina heartbeat bill, new business, item 8D. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No. Can I get a show of hands of the ayes, please? And those opposed, please. Thank you. Motion's defeated.
Mr. Chair, I'll come back to that under new business, and I do have some comments about that, but I'll save them for
That'd be fine.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get an approval for the agenda as written?
So moved. Mr. Chair.
Motion's been made to approve the agenda as written. All those in favor of, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. This evening, we have a number of resolutions as well as presentations honoring service to Lee County. And what we would like to do is vote on the resolution and then present the resolution to the individuals. The first resolution up for approval is the resolution recognizing Broadway Police Chief Todd Hinnant. Do I have a motion?
So
Move
moved.
to approve.
Motion's been made to approve the resolution recognizing Broadway Police Chief Todd Hinnant. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I'm going to take the moment and read the resolution. Chief Hinnant was not able to be here, but I will chase him down at the Broadway Town Commission meeting next week. The following resolution recognizing Broadway Police Chief Todd Hinnant and his 30 years of service to the Lee County community. Whereas Chief Todd Hinnant attended Central Carolina Community College, where he earned a certificate in basic law enforcement in August of 1993. And whereas Chief Todd Hinnant began his career as a reserve officer in October 1993. And whereas Chief Todd Hinnant became a patrol officer for the Broadway Police Department in December of '93. And whereas Chief Todd Hinnant was hired as a deputy for for the Lee County Sheriff's Office in January 1997 and was subsequently promoted to Civic Sergeant in February of 2002, Domestic Violence Sergeant in September 2003, and Detective Sergeant in September 2004. And whereas Chief Todd Hinnett was appointed as Police Chief of Broadway Police Department on December 1st, 2006. And whereas Chief Todd Hinnett has announced his retirement as Broadway Police Chief effective January 1, 2022, with 30 years of service in law enforcement. And now therefore be it resolved by the Lee County Board of Commissioners that the Broadway Police Chief Todd Hinnett is honored for his 30 years of service in law enforcement in Lee County, presented and adopted this 13th day of December 2021. And we will be presenting that at the Broadway Town Commissioners meeting. Thank you. Next item up on the agenda is the resolution recognizing the Sanford Fire Department Chief Wayne Barber. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion to approve.
Motion has been made to approve the resolution recognizing Fire Department Chief Wayne Barber. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And at the end of this, we would like to have a group picture with Chief Barber and the commissioners on the stage here.
Okay. I'd like to read the resolution for Chief Wayne Barber. This resolution recognizing Chief Wayne Barber and his 47 years of service with the Sanford Fire Department. Whereas Chief Wayne Barber began his career in the fire service as a volunteer firefighter, and whereas Chief Wayne Barber began working for the Sanford Fire Department on February 14, 1975. Whereas Chief Barber was promoted to a pumper engineer in February 1977, and then as a lieutenant in August of 1982, and as a captain in December of 1983, and as assistant chief in March 1989. And whereas on August 18, 1995, Chief Wayne Barber was named as the fire chief of the Sanford Fire Department for the city of Sanford. And whereas during his tenure, the Sanford Fire Department, Chief Barber's accomplishments include the overseeing of the expansion of the department's fire service, capability, establishment of a child passenger safety program, facilitations of the Sanford Fire Department's cancer initiative, and overseeing many equipment upgrades and the increase of the fire stations across the city to increase the service capability in relation to increasing population and geographic growth. And whereas on November 16th, 2021, Chief Barber was honored as a hometown hero by the North Carolina Automobile Dealers Association. Whereas Chief Barber has announced his retirement as Fire Chief effective January 1st, 2022, after dedicating 47 years to his career in providing exemplary fire service and leadership. And now therefore be it resolved by the Lee County Board of Commissioners that Sanford Fire Chief Department Chief Wayne Barber is recognized and honored for his outstanding career in the fire service and 47 years of dedication to the city of Sanford and Lee County, and that the board extends its sincere appreciation and wishes him the best in all his future endeavors, and is presented and adopted this date, December 13th of 2021. I'd like to make some comments to that. It's kind of personal. This man right here. Hey, grown men cried, it's okay. In 1983, a young man out of high school was hired by the Sanford Fire Department. And for 17 years, I got to work with his brothers and sisters. It's just like law enforcement. The guys, you become a sincere group and you come together. And a lot of these older guys, when they come in, of course, he wasn't too much older than me back in the day. I came in 1983. But as I came in, I didn't go into military service, but these guys taught me honor and service and respect. And that's the same way it is in the law enforcement. But these are tight groups of people when they come together. These guys will always be my brothers, and along with these guys coming up after this. I've been in law enforcement since 1988, and it's a brotherhood and sisterhood. This man has dedicated his life to that job. I mean, a lot, maybe some might know, he didn't have kids, but we were his baby. That fire department in the city of Sanford was his baby. He loved it. Anytime you needed him, that man was there. And I admire and I appreciate him for what he brought me up to. And I think me being in this type of office is a part of this man right here. Thank you, Chief. We don't get your picture, Chief. We don't
You
get your
need to
picture.
come up on the stage real quick, and we'll get a group picture. Chief, we have the sheriff's department here. They will not be tagging your vehicle. After the city council recognized the chief the other night, they went out and took that yellow do not enter tape and wrapped it all around his vehicle. I have pictures. Okay. Do I hear a motion regarding the resolution recognizing Sheriff Carter?
So moved.
The first one's for Chief Deputy Randall Butler.
Oh, I'm out of order. I'll stand corrected. I have them. Gotta love your clerk. Do I have a motion to recognize a resolution recognizing Chief Deputy Randall Butler?
So moved.
Motion's been made to recognize the resolution recognizing Chief Randall Butler. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Chief Deputy. Resolution recognizing 15 years of service and awarding the service sidearm of Chief Deputy Randall Butler of the Lee County Sheriff's Department upon his retirement. Whereas Chief Deputy Randall Butler began his career with the Lee County Sheriff's Department as Chief Deputy on December 4th of 2006, and whereas Chief Deputy Randall Butler will retire effective January 1, 2022, with 15 years of dedicated service in law enforcement with the Lee County Sheriff's Department, and whereas Lee County Sheriff Tracy Carter has requested to present Chief Deputy Randall Butler with his service sidearm as part of his reward of service in law enforcement in recognition of a job well done in the protection and service to the communities of Lee County. And whereas North Carolina General Statute 20-187.2 allows the Lee County Board of Commissioners in their discretion to award a retired member of the Lee County Sheriff's Department with their service sidearm. And whereas Chief Deputy Randall Butler is eligible to own, possess, or receive a firearm under the provisions of state and/or federal law. And whereas the Board of Commissioners wishes to express their sincere appreciation to Chief Deputy Randall Butler for his loyalty to Lee County for the past 15 years and wish him happiness as he begins his new exciting chapter in his life. Now be it resolved, Chief Deputy Randall Butler is hereby awarded his service sidearm, a Sig Sauer P320 9mm. Be it further resolved, the Lee County Board of Commissioners recognizes and honors Chief Deputy Randall Butler for his 15 years of honorable service in protecting and serving the communities of Lee County, presented and adopted this 13th day of December 2021, and I got to sign it. Congratulations. Do I hear a motion to approve the proclamation honoring Sheriff Tracy Carter? Move to approve. Motion's been made to approve the proclamation honoring Sheriff Tracy Carter. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Sheriff Carter.
If we could also get a motion to adopt the resolution for the service sidearm as well.
Second resolution on the adoption of the service sidearm for both Chief Deputy
This one's for Sheriff Carter.
for the Sheriff Carter. Okay.
Yes.
So we need an exclusive motion in that
For
regard.
the resolution, it's a separate action, yes, sir.
Move to approve.
Motion's been made to approve the resolution signifying that Sheriff Carter can remain armed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Proclamation honoring Sheriff Tracy Carter. Whereas Sheriff Tracy Carter began his career in law enforcement with the Town of Broadway Police Department in 1986, working part-time before accepting a full-time position as a jail officer, and later that same year becoming a deputy sheriff and dare officer with the Lee County Sheriff's Department. And whereas in 1993, Sheriff Tracy Carter accepted a position with Lee County Schools as the first Chief of Special Police serving through 2006. And whereas Sheriff Tracy Carter was elected and began his service as Lee County Sheriff on December 4th, 2006. And whereas Sheriff Tracy Carter holds a BAS in Human Services and Criminal Justice from Campbell University, in addition to an advanced certificate in law enforcement from the North Carolina Sheriff's Training and Standards Commission, graduated in 2010 from the North Carolina Sheriff's Leadership Institute, received a Distinguished Alumni Award from Central Carolina Community College in 2012, was nominated in 2014 to the Campbell University Alumni Committee, and was appointed by Governor McCrory to serve on the Juvenile Justice Planning Committee under the Governor's Crime Commission. And whereas when Sheriff Tracy Carter began his career, Lee County had a population of 50,948 citizens compared to 63,285 today, and continued to provide excellent service while accommodating the growing community. And whereas the Board of Commissioners wish to express their sincere appreciation to Sheriff Tracy Carter for his loyalty and dedication to Lee County over the past 35 years, including his 15 years as sheriff, providing exemplary leadership in law enforcement, and wish him the best in all his future endeavors. Now therefore, the Board of Commissioners hereby proclaim Friday, December 31st, 2021 as Sheriff Tracy Carter Day. Presented and adopted this 13th day of December 2021, and it is my distinct privilege and honor to have signed it for you. Thank you, sir.
Well, that ain't that big though. There'll be no room up there, man.
She said, make sure you're in line in the middle. No, sorry. Is that the one for the gun? That was for the gun.
Okay. You'll have to excuse my inability to keep things straight. I hear a motion to approve the resolution appointing Brian Estes to serve the remaining term of Sheriff Tracy Carter.
Move to approve.
Motion been made to approve the resolution appointing Brian Estes to serve the remaining term of Sheriff Tracy Carter. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Brian Estes, please. That's Charles. Oh, who said Charles? Sheriff is better. Sheriff works, okay. The resolution appointing Brian Estes to serve the remaining term of Sheriff Tracy Carter. Whereas Sheriff Tracy Carter submitted a letter of resignation from his position as Sheriff of Lee County effective 1 January 2022, which is prior to the end of his current term expiring in December of 2022. And whereas pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 162-5.1, subparagraph B, if the sheriff were, quote, if the sheriff were elected as a nominee of a political party, the Board of County Commissioners shall consult the county executive committee of that political party before filing the vacancy, and shall appoint the person recommended by the county executive committee of that party if the party makes a recommendation within 30 days of the occurrence of the vacancy, unquote. And whereas the Lee County Republican Party voted on November 22nd of 2021 to recommend the appointment of Brian Estes to fill the vacancy serving the remaining term of Sheriff Tracy Carter. And whereas in compliance with North Carolina General Statute 162-5.1, subparagraph D. Brian Estes has submitted a valid disclosure statement dated November 5th, 2021, and prepared by the North Carolina Sheriff's Education Training and Standards in accordance with 17E-20, verifying his qualification for appointment. And whereas the Lee County Board of Commissioners recognizes Brian Estes' eligibility to fill the vacancy of sheriff effective January 1st, 2022, and that all requirements and qualifications have been met to make such appointment as recommended by the Lee County Republican Party, and now therefore be it resolved by the Lee County Board of Commissioners that Brian Estes is hereby appointed to fill the vacancy of sheriff upon the retirement of Sheriff Tracy Carter, effective January 1, 2022, through the end of his current term expiring in December 2022. Adopted this 13th day of December 2021. And I had the pleasure of signing it. Thank you, sir. Let's see, Sheriff appointed until 1 January. Family, members of your staff or future staff, come forward for a picture. All right.
So we'll get those same people back up here. Oh, my. And I do get to keep my gun too, by the way. Just making sure.
Resolutions mixed up.
That's okay. We fixed it. Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate the sheriff appointed and the sheriff retiring and the chief deputy retiring and the fire chief retiring and the police chief of Broadway retiring. Are we getting old? All right, thank you. We have a public hearing scheduled, an additional public hearing for Project Frame grant funding, as well as approve agreements regarding Project Frame. I've got Whitney as noted here as speaking on this, or we got Mr. Randolph.
Ms. Randolph, you want to
Lead off on public hearing, sir. I do now proclaim this as public hearing is open regarding additional public hearing regarding Project Frame grant funding. It's all yours, sir.
Good evening, Chairman Smith, Commissioners, staff. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to speak on behalf of Project Frame. My name is Jimmy Randolph. I am the CEO of Saga, and I live at 3405 Windmere Drive in Sanford. I had the privilege to speak before you regarding this project a few weeks back, and was pleased to talk about a project that would bring approximately 235 new jobs to the community, many of which are jobs that are in production and installation, consistent with Saga's strategy of recruiting a diverse mix of industries which provide viable career pathways and upward mobility for county residents with diverse skill levels and work experiences. The project would consist of the purchase of machinery and equipment and building construction in the amount of at least $18 million in net new taxable investment. We considered that question of whether the county would participate in offering a local grant to support this project. And I'm back before you tonight to talk about this project because they have been deemed eligible for a grant from the North Carolina Railroad, which would help construct a rail spur at the proposed site of the project, which would help facilitate the location of the company here potentially in Sanford and Lee County. That grant from the North Carolina Railroad requires a local government to partner with the railroad in the administration of the grant. So I'm here tonight, and this public hearing tonight is to consider the question of whether Lee County would participate in that. And as the project nears a decision-making point in where they will locate, the presence of rail and the availability of rail is a very important part of that project. And I'm here tonight to encourage you to consider whether or not the county would consider participating in that grant.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any questions of Mr. Randolph while he's here? As this is a public hearing, I'm seeking anyone who is for this grant of $300,000 that the local government will be a pass-through for. Any comments for? Any public comments opposing or against? Last call for, last call against. I now close the public hearing. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to approve agreements regarding Project Frame.
Well, Mr. Chair, that would be on if the board was going to waive its policy to vote on this matter this evening.
Do I have a motion to waive the policy on the vote for Project Frame?
So moved.
Motion has been made to waive our policy to follow the public hearing with a vote on Project Frame. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passed to waive our policy. Now the next item is approve agreements regarding Project Frame, which is a local cash grant incentive of up to $257,595. Discussion, please.
Yeah, we're actually voting on the 300,000 grant. Are we voting?
Is this on the railroad?
Right, so
Okay.
there would need to be two separate agreements. We don't have the railroad agreements on the agenda this evening because I wasn't sure what the board's intent was in that. And then what the board's intent on with that will affect the local cash grant incentive agreements and how they're worded. So they're not on the agenda this evening.
I understand. Well, I was reading.
It was a placeholder in case, depending on what happened with the public hearing.
Okay, well, we
Does that make sense?
waived the vote, so we can vote on it. Approve the approve the agreements on the original proposal, and this is not including the railroad grant.
Yes, if the board would like to, they're not on the agenda, but they are drafted. And if the board has already approved a resolution outlining the overall agreement, and if the board wants to approve that agreement, as we normally draft our local incentive agreements, then the board can pass that subject to legal's review if they would like to this evening.
Okay? Any other questions? Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, there was some discussion at one time of the amount and that it might be shared with the city of Sanford. Was there any discussion of that?
That was the railroad grant. The railroad grant works much like a rural center grant where if the company doesn't meet its obligations, the county's actually the one that has to repay the grant to the state. So there was an effort on our part to try to get the city to share in that risk on that. And for reasons that, I can't discuss right now, the city cannot participate. So we would be moving forward without the city as a partner on the railroad grant.
And we can always wait to find out, can't we?
on the railroad grant.
Yeah. So is that-
I
is
would
that-
recommend going ahead and voting on the incentive, showing the company our commitment to that, but, you know, the risk on the grant is a little too great doing that on our own, so I would wait on voting on the railroad grant.
So this vote that you're asking for now is just on the incentive package, right?
Correct.
Any other questions?
Just a point of clarification, if in fact that we need to make up the failure of the company to cover it, or to do what they say, would then the county be responsible for this 100%?
Yes, sir. And
Yeah,
what we had talked about doing was withholding the grant money until they met that obligation, but the grant, the cash grant is less than the, you know, what we would owe the state. That's why we were asking for the city to help. But I think it's, you know, $50,000 short. So the county would have to come out of pocket to cover the rest of that if they did not meet the incentive. I mean, if they did not meet the obligations that go with the railroad grant. So there's, in the railroad grant, they have to ship a certain number of cars by a date to meet the requirements of that grant.
Any other questions?
So what exactly are we doing? We're voting for the incentive and not for the railroad grant.
Correct.
Will there be further discussion or research done on the
On the
city's
grant.
participation?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And just so I'm clear, that the vote on the local grant and incentive agreement is to write it, which I've drafted, is to write it the way we have always typically done, and then we'll just hold off on the railroad portion of it now, is that correct?
Right.
And then the board can sign, or the chair can sign it once the company has announced the name can be changed within the agreement, and the board's okay as long as legal's okay with the agreement.
Any idea when the city will take up the issue? Or are we gonna have to make that request?
Well, they've taken it up once, and I know that Saga is still working on the issue. Right now, it's pretty much in Saga's ballpark. And he's nodding his head yes, he's in agreement, that's in his court.
Is that a commitment to follow up or what?
Yes, sir, those discussions are ongoing.
All right, thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve the original grant?
So moved.
Motion's been made to approve the agreement regarding Project Frame, a local cash grant incentive up to $257,595. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda are public comments. We have 3 public comments this evening. Just a reminder, it's a 3-minute public comments segment. You have 3 minutes. We do ask that when you come to the podium to speak, that you please state your name and address. First off, I have Kate Fry. Is Kate here?
Hello. My name is Kate Fry. I live at 2011 Shannon Drive in Sanford. And the reason I'm here is I'd like to know why you are making the proposal regarding the heartbeat bill. I'd like to know why you feel you have the authority to interfere with a woman's right, along with her doctor, to make a medical decision about her body. And is this even within the jurisdiction of the county commissioners? It's very disheartening that our small town is making these moves. A woman's right to take charge of her own body and make decisions about it is not even questioned. And, you know, I was going to write a bunch of stuff, but really I just don't understand why you're even proposing this resolution. It's a hot topic. It's not something that, that I think even should be considered. And I would like the resolution to be not considered and thrown out, and let women, trust that women can make their own decisions along with their doctor about their body, whatever that is. and to interfere with that and, have rules or laws or whatever trying to interfere with that, I think is totally wrong. So I'm very nervous. This is the first time I've done this, but it is very important to me as a woman and to women have rights about their body. And I don't think any men should come in and interfere with that. No man can carry a child, and no man can make that. So think about that. It's a woman's right to make a decision. And it doesn't mean I agree with what they decide, but they have that right. And if you put this through, I think it's really going to affect a lot of people and women especially. So thank you, and I think the resolution should not even be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, Bruce McGinnis.
My name is Bruce McInnes. I live at 1611 Carbonton Road, and I rise to stand in favor of the resolution to ask the State Assembly and the Governor to pass a heartbeat bill. And the reason I would urge you to do that is because it is right. It is right. Now, I know that there are those that will say, well, it's the woman's right to choose, that it's her body, it's her baby, or whatever she wants to call it. There's others who will say, no, we don't go enough. We don't go far enough. And it's actually, life begins at conception, and so a heartbeat is actually after that. I imagine there are all sorts of things in between, and there's a debate on what is right and what is wrong. And I stand before you and say on the authority of God and His Word that He is the one that states what is right and what is wrong. Not a majority vote, not popular opinion, not what people may think or debate, but what He has said as creator of people. He gives life, and He alone is the one that can take it. How can I say that? It's because the Word of God says it. Psalm 139 says, "For you formed my inward parts. You wove me in my mother's womb. I'll give thanks to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the depths of the earth. Your eyes have seen my unformed substance, and in your book were all written the days that were ordained for me, when as yet there was not one of them." And then God spoke to Jeremiah the prophet. He said, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I consecrated you. I've appointed you a prophet to the nations." There and other places, God says very specifically, it's about the child. And the child becomes a child at the moment of conception. But certainly, most certainly, when that child has a heartbeat. I serve on the board of Reach Out Pregnancy Center, and they have an ultrasound machine. And when women see their baby inside of them, oftentimes they choose life. But especially when they hear a heartbeat. We've seen a difference between the ultrasound picture and the heartbeat. There is something about that heartbeat that causes a woman to say, that's a child. I don't have the right to take a child's life. I don't have the right to let anybody else do that. So I would urge you to pass the resolution. No, it's not a bill. It is a way of our stating as a county, as people, that we think that we ought to do something to protect life. There's not a more important charge in government than to do that. So I urge you, with all my heart, that you would pass this resolution, for it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next individual on public comments is Robert Hatler.
If you could there's some resolutions we have over here, and if we give one to each
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner.
I caught him coming in the door and he handed me this.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Robert M. Hatler, live at 3690 Swan Station Road here in Sanford, retired U.S. Army. Today I'm going to talk about COVID-19 vaccinations and a resolution that I'd like to put forward. Now, recently, I was admitted to the hospital, and there wasn't any room for me, so they gave me a cubby hole with no windows. And when you're 85 years old, there's a definite thing about going to the hospital is that, number one, get out. But anyway, the problem we have now is we're surging again. Believe it or not, it's coming back full force. We're losing 1,300 people a day. We're over 800,000 people have died. When I went to Vietnam, you got all upset about 40,000 of us getting killed. Jeez, nobody's even excited about 800,000. What's happened? Now, I normally don't try to bother God about too much, so I've talked to an expert on it. And each one of you should have a copy of it in front of you. It's from Martin Luther, not King. It's 500 and some years ago. It is even more shameful for, excuse me, I'll have to put on my glasses, even though it's big print. It is even more shameful for a person to pay no heed to his own body and to fail to protect it against the plague the best he is able, and then to infect and poison others who might have remained alive if he had taken care of his body as he should have. He is thus responsible before God for his neighbor's death and is a murderer many times over. Martin Luther's work, volume 43, Whether One Should Flee from a Deadly Plague. Now, I can't be more. In other words, people who do not get vaccinated, other than making me wear a mask forever, which we don't need to do. If we all get vaccinated, we're free. Now, my brother had polio. We all get vaccinated. It was no big deal. What's the big deal here? I don't understand it. So I've give a resolution which is in front of you. Whereas many persons have been given misinformation regarding the vaccination for COVID and its changing variations. Whereas individuals have been dying at the rate of 1,300 each day nationwide, and the overall death toll from this pandemic now exceeds 800,000. Whereas the unvaccinated ill individuals are stressing the hospital systems. Whereas overcrowding of our hospitals causes patients to postpone critical surgeries and procedures.
Time, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is old business regarding surplus property. Update on 108 South 15th Street and 110 Alcott Street.
Yes,
Madam Barrister.
that's me. So we'll take, actually 108 South 15th Street first. At your, tables, there is a new resolution, that is the final resolution for disposing of that property. This is the one where, the taxable value is $3,900. Brick Capital Community Development Corporation submitted an offer of $1,500 plus advertising. The offer was advertised, on October 28th in the Herald, and there were no upset bids. At this time, I'm just asking that the board adopt the resolution and authorize the chair to sign all the documents that will effectuate the transfer when they're completed.
Do each individual resolution separately?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. Do I have a motion to authorize the sale of property located at 307 Sanley Drive, Lee County, North Carolina?
Well, I just did a 108 15th
Oh, I'm
Street.
sorry.
It's okay.
I got two of them here.
Yes, sir.
Located at 108 15th Street, Lee County, North Carolina.
So moved.
Motion's been made to approve the resolution authorizing the sale of property located 108 15th Street, Lee County, North Carolina. Any further discussion? Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Yes, and the second one is, in fact, not 110 Alcott Street. I'm bringing Brick Capitals back, and so that is correct. It's the 307 Sanley Drive. This one, the taxable value of the property was $4,900. Brick Capital Community Development has submitted an offer of $1,500 and the advertising costs. Again, this offer was advertised in the Sanford Herald, allowed for the 10-day upset seal bid period. No bids were submitted on this offer. So once again, just asking the board to approve the resolution and authorize the chair to sign all the paperwork to effectuate the transfer once it's been finalized.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion's been made to approve the resolution authorizing the sale of property located at 307 Sanley Drive, correct?
Yes, sir.
This is different.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Lee County, North Carolina. Any further discussion, any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Under new business, the fiscal year 2020 and 2021 financial statement presentation by
Chairman?
Lisa.
Sorry, Chairman Smith, I think we missed the transfer of the Triangle South Workforce Development Board.
Oh,
resolution.
goodness gracious, she had two resolutions here, I just clicked off resolution, my fault. Just too many resolutions in one motion.
We've had a lot going on
We've
tonight.
had a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you for catching that, Madam Clerk. Resolution to transfer the Triangle South Workforce Development Board to the Capital Area Workforce Development Board. If I could get the manager to discuss this, please.
Yes, sir. Chairman Smith brought to our attention a couple meetings ago the desire of the Triangle South Workforce Development Board to disband at the recommendation of the community college. The community college has been doing the administration of the WIOA workforce program and no longer wishes to do it. So in discussions with the state, there was an agreement that, or an attempt for Chatham County and Lee County to join Johnston County and Wake County in the capital area workforce development area, and that Harnett and Sampson would move to the Mid-Carolina Workforce Development Board out of Fayetteville. So we have approached Wake and Johnson counties. They seem to be on board with us joining that, so we need this resolution to send to the state showing that our commitment to moving to that Workforce Development Board, and we're recommending approval.
If I could just add to that as well, the Department of Commerce, North Carolina Department of Commerce, is working to consolidate the workforce development boards with the 8 enterprise zones within the state, which means right now we have, I want to say 26, or is it 23 workforce development boards? I believe it's 26. We have 26 workforce development boards. One workforce development board actually occupies territory in 3 different enterprise zones. And they want to consolidate the workforce development boards into 8 specific related to the enterprise zones as well, instead of the 26 that we have now. Any further discussion? Any questions?
What happens to the staff that's been supporting Lee County? How is that going to work?
The community college has worked with them, as some of them have already left and gotten positions. We had one resign the other night. She mentioned that she was going to Wake County Schools. So they're going to be absorbed within the community college, so they're not going to lose a position. And then, of course, the contractors will just realign with the appropriate workforce development board.
And any of the remaining employees here can talk with the Capital Area Workforce Development Board, because obviously they're going to need more administrative positions to handle Chatham County and Lee County. So
I would hope so. And who will have the list of the contact persons in those positions? Do you get that, or?
In the positions locally, or the position, who they should talk to at capital area?
Well, if we lose direct contact here, we lose staff here, I hope we'll still have representation, and how do we find out who it is and who to contact for support and help?
Right. I have the name of the executive director for the Capital Area Workforce Development Board. And when the board is formed, the county gets representation on that board. And there still have the chief, the group that's known as the chief elected officials. So the chairman of all 4 of the counties also serve in that capacity. So Chairman Smith right now is our chief elected official that's works with the other counties. He'll do the same thing in the Chatham County, in the Capital Area Workforce Development Board. So we have involvement with the board and also the staff.
Okay, so when we individually get requests for assistance in the program, we go through you and the chair.
Well, and we'll give you to the Capital Area Workforce Development Board, who's the administrator of the grants.
I just know we've had problems the way it was originally right here in Lee County. And the more we engage with others, the more concern I have about losing our identity altogether and support. So I like to see that chain as soon as possible, how it's going to work.
Okay. Well, it would become effective July 1, so there's a lot of work between January and July 1 on what will be done and what will be set up.
Thank you.
I think key is here is that right now, because the community college administers the program, they can't apply for services, to provide services, which they occupy 3 counties, Harnett, Lee, and Chatham County. They're not able to apply for training opportunities because they are the administrators, and that's pretty much what's tying their hands. So we'll still have a local influence as far as having the ability to provide training. It's just that in relation to the Department of Commerce, they want to consolidate the workforce development boards and relate them directly to those 8 enterprise zones within the state.
Yeah, the state, the Department of Commerce had made the determination there was a conflict for the community college to administer the program and also provide the training. So even though in other states, the community colleges do both. So, but anyway.
Yeah, I'm always concerned when the
Yes, sir.
state comes up with a good idea to consolidate.
The other
Always
thing,
look back
yeah.
at mental health.
The other piece of this is that the community college understands how important the program is to the students that come to their campus. So through their, counselor office, they should have connections with the Capital Area Workforce Development Board. And the discussions I've had with the president and the vice president of administration is they already have those contacts in place. But,
Okay.
yeah, there'll be a transition, and I think as you saw in the letter, I think there's some work to be done with the Capital Area Workforce Development Board and making sure that they understand that they're gonna have enough money to administer the grant. They don't have to worry, the host counties right now don't have to worry about they're gonna get shortchanged.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Crum.
You're welcome, sir.
Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Motion's been made to approve the resolution to transfer the Triangle South Workforce Development Board to the Capital Area Workforce Development Board. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on, new business? Now we can get to, I'm sorry.
Good evening. In your package at your table, you should have a letter from Thompson, Price, Scott, and Adams, Adams and Company, our auditors. It's a letter of governance that they have to provide. You'll also have a copy of the PowerPoint that's being presented. And then you also have a bound draft copy of our financial statements. We did not receive LGC approval as of earlier today, so they printed a draft copy. We are not anticipating numbers changing, so we wanted to go ahead and do the presentation, and we'll get you a final copy once we do get LGC approval. So to begin tonight, I'm going to ask Brandy Tuberville, from, a CPA from Thompson Price Scott Adams and Company, who was in charge of our audit this year, to come up and make her comments, and then I'll come back and present the numbers to you for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As she said, my name is Brandy Tuberville. I have been with Thompson Price for 16 years, currently the audit manager. I will start this out by saying you have a wonderful finance staff. We have 18 counties that we do, and she's by far my favorite. I love her.
We do too.
You should.
You can't take her.
I've not tried to, but we always love, we love when we have good staff to work with, because it sure makes our life a whole lot easier. All right, so I'm going to go through a couple of comments that we are required to present to you. They're all kind of in the letter to governance. I'm just kind of going to bullet point them for you. Oops, I went the wrong way. All right, so as far as an opinion, that's obviously what you hire us to do, to give you an opinion on your financials. So you have an unmodified opinion, which means a clean report. There were no findings or anything that we had to disclose. You'll notice that in the back part of your financials, there were no findings identified. As far as new pronouncements that were adopted in the current fiscal year, GASB 84, which was the way they changed what used to be agency funds, the way they were presented. So now you'll have a couple of new special revenue funds, and then some of the agency funds are now just the same way they were before, essentially. So it wasn't anything big with that change. That we had no difficulties encountered in performing the audit. There was no uncorrected misstatements or disagreements with management. We were provided with a representation letter dated November 22nd, 2021, which was the date of the report. The LGC changed the way they were reviewing audits this year, i.e. we still don't have approval yet, but they gave us this little data input sheet, what they called it, which was like an Excel template, and we had to plug numbers in it from the audit report. And if it identified things that were performance indicators, they used to send out what they called a unit letter, where they told you the things you needed to improve on and wanted a response. They're no longer doing that. They're depending on us to tell you, but we're happy to tell you you didn't have anything identified in that report, so there's nothing you have to address on that. We just have to stand before you in an open board and tell you that now. Upcoming changes, Lisa and I have already talked. The lease standard is a big deal for a lot of folks. We've talked to a few counties. They haven't started yet, so she's well into the game here, but it's going to change the way the financial statements look pretty dramatically for next year. So it's very important to have what you need right now, so that at the end of next year, you won't be waiting on this information to be able to complete next year's audit. So we're in good shape with that. We're already working through that, but just to make you aware of this big change that's coming. And with that said, I will turn it back over to her and let her go through the numbers, and I will stick around if you have any questions of me once she goes through the financials.
Okay, so tonight I'll be going over the general fund activity with you, our fund balance position, our debt position. I'll give you an update on our capital projects as of June 30th, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions if you should have any. Oops, this one is very sensitive. So, general fund revenues. Our revenues and transfers totaled $80,909,755. That's an increase of 5.64%, or $4,317,212 more than fiscal year 2020. Just to show you where our revenues come from, of course, 60% of our revenue comes from ad valorem taxes. The next largest percentage is 23%, and that's our local option sales tax, followed by our restricted intergovernmental revenues making up 11%, and then the other small percentages you'll see there. So you can see a comparison from year to year. The purple line is 6/30/2020. The maroon colored line is 6/30/2021. You can see, obviously, in ad valorem taxes and sales taxes, we saw growth. We saw a small amount of growth in our other taxes. Intergovernmental revenues fell just slightly. Permits and fees were up, sales and services were down, contributed mostly to COVID. Limitations on our programs. Investment earnings dropped drastically with the economy and the results of the COVID outbreak. And then you have miscellaneous. We saw a slight decrease there also. Going into a little bit more detail, property tax revenues totaled $48,109,246. That was an increase of 4.42% from the fiscal year 2020. Our assessed value totaled $6,169,114,912. That was an increase of 3.45% from fiscal year 2020. And you can see that graphically there. I know I always try to show you our residential and commercial base breakdown in our value. You can see the numbers there. We saw a slight increase in both categories there. As far as property taxes go, we collected 99.13% what the levy was collected. That's across the board. If you exclude motor vehicles, we collected 99.03%. And again, the way the state has us report motor vehicles now, with them collecting it, it shows 100% collected. Not all of our motor vehicle bills are collected though at that time, okay? But since the state sends us everything they do collect for us, they have us reported as 100%. So our tax department did an outstanding job in working on collections, especially with the COVID outbreak. And I did not see a drop in that. It's quite substantial. Collections exceeded our budget by $2,167,059. Sales taxes. Sales tax revenue totaled $18,573,234, which was a $2,935,870 increase, or 18.77% over fiscal year 2020. Y'all knew that was coming, and where we had been most of the year. But you can see here graphically that sales taxes just grew phenomenally last fiscal year. We're not seeing quite as high growth this year so far, and the anticipation is that it may slow down during this fiscal year. But we still think we're not in any danger of not meeting our budget projection at this point for this year. As far as expenditures go, our expenditures and transfers to other funds totaled $76,767,605. That's an increase of $1,851,999, or 2.47% higher than fiscal year 2020. Human Services, Public Safety, and Education continue to account for the majority of the county's expenditures. And here you can see graphically where our expenditures are. You can see the areas that went up from year to year and then dropped. Economic and physical development is down in the current year because of the expenditures related to some of our incentives in last year in 2020 related to Caliani and Broad Forge, amongst others. Okay, education expenditures, just to give you a rundown, Lee County Board of Education accounted for 37.13% of our general fund expenditures, and that's including their portion of the debt service. Breakdown, we did current expense of $18,912,278. Capital outlay was $1,858,810, and that includes the lottery funds that they used. Debt service totaled $7,731,933 for a total expenditure related to Lee County Board of Education of $28,503,021. And here you can see graphically. Remember, we held their current expense at the same level as fiscal year 2020. You saw a slight decrease in capital outlay, and that was related to lottery funds dropping in what they spent, not that their funds available dropped. And debt service naturally fell some, as our debt service does. CCCC expenditures, you can see the breakdown here. Current expense was just a little over $3 million. We did a $64,930 appropriation for the Civic Center. The special appropriation of $160,000 relates to the College Promise Program. Their capital outlay was $55,000, and debt service for them was $2,236,790, for a total allocation of $5,555,248. That was roughly a small decrease from fiscal year 2020, and most of that came in the area of debt service. They account for 7.24% of the general fund expenditures. So bottom line, our total revenues and transfers, as you saw earlier, were $80.9 million. We had the refunding certificates of participation that we issued that accounted for $15,235,000. The payment that we made out to the refunding escrow on that transaction was $15,151,344. And then our total expenditures were $76,767,000 and some change. So our net change in our fund balance for fiscal year end 6/30/21 was $4,225,806 increase. So a lot of that can be attributed to savings that we had. We've had a lot of turnover in positions, so I went back and looked. We saved roughly $2 million this past year on positions. Some of that's vacancies, some of it's the number of people that, temporary salaries that we terminated due to the COVID and our program's not running. So we're slowly adding a lot of those back, and hopefully, I know Joyce will be glad when we fill our positions and turnover slows down. We also were under on operating expenses by roughly $2.5 million. Some of that was covered by the CARES Act money that we received. We received, or should be getting, our FEMA reimbursement back for some of our expenditures during the year. And then also some of our departments, other departments have received quite a bit of CARES Act or COVID money. And that's helped offset some of our normal operating expenditures that we've incurred. In addition to that, there were some things that were budgeted in the last fiscal year that had to be rebudgeted. So I went and looked at our fund balance appropriation when you adopted the budget back in June was at $2,546,894. We have already in this fiscal year appropriated another $2.3 million of that for a total appropriation at the time I prepared this of $4.9 million. So some of that saving in the amount that you saw our fund balance go into was turned around and rolled right back over, either in restricted funds or items that we were not able to complete last year. Okay, so fund balance summary, our total available fund balance as of 6/30/2021 is $22,415,333. That's an increase of $3,152,987 from fiscal year 2020. Remember, there is a difference between our available fund balance and our total fund balance, so that's why those two numbers are different there. The increase is not the $4 million that you saw on the earlier page. How do we compare? Discovered that beginning this fiscal year, the state is moving away from grouping us by population group to determine our grouping for the general fund expenditure number that we always use, the 8% rule that you hear us use. They've always, up until this year, grouped us by population group and told you to look at your population group as your peer group. They are now moving to a two-group county breakdown. Those with budgets below $100 million and those above budgets of $100 million. Based on that new scenario, we would need to be at a minimum of 20% of our general fund expenditures. So they would no longer be looking at the true minimum of 8%, which they would tell you, even in your population group, you need to look at the average, not to go just with 8%. So the median for our group, as of 6/30/20, they've provided that information, was 39%. We are currently at 29.2, so we are above the minimum of 20%, but we are still below the 39%, and we were always below in our population group also because of our size. We were, and not being one of the coastal high tourist towns, we were always slightly below that. But I will recommend that we need to, probably in January when you have your retreat, look at our financial policies and reevaluate our policies based on the new way that the LGC is looking at this, or the Local Government Commission is looking at this.
Will you be bringing forth a recommendation?
I can do that, if that's what the board would like and stuff, so.
Good question.
I will take that to under advisement. So looking at this schedule was still done based on where The old rules were the 8% rule, not rule, but the 8% floor that the LGC had. And then looking at your policies of 16% as a floor instead of the 8%, and then 24% as your target. So you can see we're well ahead of all those at this point in time. And again, holding that much fund balance aids us in being able to take care of some transactions or opportunities that come available to us. You've walked into a lot of transactions that without this type of fund balance, you would not have been able to purchase some properties that you've purchased and take care of some things you've taken care of. So I think the county's to be commended for your actions in that. Okay, moving on to debt position. Our total outstanding debt at 6/30/2021 was $86,034,781, and you can see the breakdown there between the different types of debt that we have. And then this graph shows you the breakdown between the Lee County Board of Education, the community college, and then general debt of the county. And obviously, the Board of Education makes up the largest portion at 54%. The community college is 32%, and then our general debt that covers parks, et cetera, is 14%. The courthouse, things like that, and the government center renovations are all lumped in there together. And of course, your financial policies have certain minimums involved. Our outstanding debt is not to exceed 2% of the total assessed value, and we are at 1.39, and you're well below the state threshold of 8% there. Actual debt service payments equal 15.43% of general fund expenditures for fiscal year 2021. Your maximum is 15%. Now, you're probably wondering, how did we end up there? We are well below our budget, and that was it. When we did the budget, your expenditures were higher, which makes our debt percentage smaller. In actuality, with our expenditures being as far below budget as they were, it pushed us a little bit on that ratio. I don't think we have anything to be concerned about there. Okay, moving into the single audit and grants. The county managed over $143,923,592 worth of grants funds that related to Lee County. Now, funds received by the county and actually came through our coffers were only $9,958,582, meaning that there were direct vendor payments of $133,965.10. Excuse me, I said that wrong. $133,965,010 that went direct to vendors, but our staffs determined eligibility for those funds. Programs that were audited by our audit firm were Medicaid, Coronavirus Relief Funds, the School Nursing Funding Initiative, Juvenile Crime Prevention Programs, and the Public School Building Capital Fund lottery proceeds. And we are very happy, to say that, as you heard, they had no findings. So our staffs are to be commended, especially under situations they were having to work this past year to maintain and keep everything in order and be as clean as they were. So I'm very happy to say and commend our staffs in social services, health, and other divisions also. Update on capital projects. We were able to close several this past year. The CCCC Health Science Center was closed, so there are no funds remaining in that one. There is $105,866 left in the Vet Medical Technology Facility, and a majority of that has been spent out since we started this current fiscal year and should close that one shortly. The Civic Center project was closed, and the main campus ESTC project was closed, and those remaining funds left in those were transferred back to the general fund to be used for debt service purposes. The elementary school facility was finished also. Any funds remaining there was split between the courthouse and the park projects, which were also involved in that GO debt issuance that was done. So we finished that out at the $28 million. The courthouse complex is still going on. As of June 30th, there was $2.2 million left in that project to spend. Park projects, we're wrapping those up, so you can imagine the majority of that, big chunk of that $3 million that was left at June 30th is being spent in this year. You have the government center renovations that had $2.2 million left at the end of June 30th. And then you had two projects that are in the negative because we had just started those and we have not borrowed those money. Well, in the multi-sports complex, we have not issued any of the debt yet. For the CCC project there that you see, that $7 million came from the debt issuance that we did to by the Morelli facility until we can turn that into a permanent financing in, hopefully in a year or so. Okay. So I would like to acknowledge, obviously, Thompson Price Scott Adams and Company, our auditors. We have had a very successful run with them and have enjoyed working with them, and they do an outstanding job for us. I have to thank our county departments for their cooperation through the process, and then Dr. Crumpton and, of course, all of you for your support ongoing and the wonderful management y'all do of this county and the extent y'all pay attention to the finances. And then I have to thank my staff. I could not be up here doing what I do if it wasn't for having an outstanding staff that have helped through this audit and keep everything going. And
we couldn't be bragging about it if you weren't there, so thank you very much.
Thank you. At this time, I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have. I know I went through that relatively quickly, and plus I talk fast.
Any questions? Commissioner Carver?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Connect? Commissioner LaValle?
No.
Commissioner Sharp?
It's a good job, staff.
Thank you.
Commissioner Reeves, any other questions?
I've got one involving the expenditures. I think I saw that there was an increase of 2.74%. Do you keep a report that shows where those impacts took place along with an explanation?
From year to year?
Yes.
I can get it for you. I mean, I can tell you what departments it came in if you want it down to that level.
Yes.
Okay? I can
Thank
be glad to.
Commissioner Lubbock?
I'm good, thank you.
Just, Lisa, in the multi-sports complex, I know we purchased the property. Is that expenditure going to be reported once we get a bond?
The
It
multi-sports.
was done after June 30th.
Oh, I'm sorry, wrong fiscal year. Excuse me.
So that fund balance that you had, we already spent $2 million on it.
I gotta get with the calendar.
Yeah, that one got delayed a little bit. The actual closure on that was not until July.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we did not close by June 30th, so it did not make that report.
Right, sorry. I had to stop and look back. I was like, wait a second, I don't remember.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's been a wild year.
It has been. And we are,
It's been a
as,
wild 2 years, to be honest with you. The last 2 fiscal years have been really different and unexpected. With the COVID, I would have told you I thought we would be the other way. When it started, I would have told you I thought we'd be upside down, and instead, our economy has turned the other way, and was quite unexpected, so it's gonna be interesting to see if it'll keep rolling going forward. So as the board's looking forward, to the coming budget, we have lots of decisions, lots of things to discuss, and in January, a couple of meetings ago, we talked about budget priorities. Mr. Reeves gave me a budget priority a couple weeks ago. He'd like to see a $15 minimum wage for our full-time employees. We have about 28 employees who are full-time, who are not at $15 an hour. And to take them up would be about $112,000. So,
And one of the primary reason is that the state took the position that they were going to do the boards of education, but not local governments. And all that does is make our people more attractive to other positions somewhere else because they're doing some of the same jobs and get paid more. So we really ought to be thinking about that strongly.
and our part-time staff, the old minimum wage no longer will attract the seasonal part-time
Right.
staff that we need. So we have a lot to talk about with the board outside of the strategic plan at the January budget retreat. But, I will say we're in good shape. Our auditor would tell you that there are counties that are not as lucky as we were in all of this, because there are counties that had things go the other way. And so we should be very fortunate. We're very fortunate, and we should be very thankful.
And we are diligently working on leases. Candace, assistant, is here with me tonight. She is working with a company called DebtBook to help us analyze our leases. And hopefully we will have everything in place before we get ready to do our audit next year with those. Just to give you a little insight of that. In the past, a lot of our things that we quote lease or rent, we've been able to just count as operating expenses and not have to book them as a liability with the new regulations that are coming down. Something as simple as the facility that we rent for gymnastics will now end up having to be an asset on our books, and we will have to book a liability for those lease payments ongoing. So just a little snippet of what we're looking at, and we're having to analyze even service contracts to make sure there's no asset portion to the service contracts. So it is, our financial statements are not boilerplate. There are changes every year, and they can be rather challenging, and this one, the leases, is definitely going to be a challenge for us. So but we will overcome, that's for sure. So no other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would the board like to take a 5-minute recess? Please. Let's take a 5-minute recess, please. get seated, please? I thought I saw Robert come back in. If we could please reconvene. Recess is over. That was an extended 5 minutes. I apologize. Next time I'll give you 10. First off, next on the item agenda is Parks and Rec's Comprehensive Master Plan. Mr. Keel and consultant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners. Over the last 9 months, Parks and Rec has been working through our comprehensive master plan. The comprehensive master plan is a working document, but it lays out a good blueprint of what Parks and Rec should be striving for, areas that we can improve on. So last 9 months, we've done public input sessions, random surveys that have been mailed out to people's houses, also meetings with staff, seeing what works well, what's not working well, how can we improve and become a better Parks and Rec. So tonight, I have John Wood from Benish and Company here. He presented this to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board on November 29th, where the Parks and Rec Advisory Board did recommend and approve the master plan. So I'll be up here as well, but we're going to let John Wood run through some slides, and then there'll be a chance for questions at the end.
Thank you, Joseph. Good night, or good evening, Chairman and Commissioners and county staff. As Joseph said, my name is John Wood. I'm a landscape architect, or as Chairman Smith said, a consultant. That's what my role is. So we started this process the end of February and came up, and our goal was to, let's see, make sure I get the right one here. Our goal was to look at the 2010, start with the 2010 plan, and then our goal in charge is to provide an update to that plan. We come into the planning process, as we do so often with these system-wide plans, with a series of objectives that we look at, and for whether it's a large county-wide system or a small town or a city, and these typical bullet points typically, they work well as we set up, as we move forward with it. We like to go back, look at the existing plan, the objectives. In this case, the 2010 plan had about 21 objectives in it, and we've decided about 5 of those have been accomplished since 2010, and a lot of that in the last 2 years. But many of those objectives will move forward into this plan. With Joseph coming on board now 2 years, every director has a slightly different bend on how they want to run a department. So we also look at what Lee County what they want to be in recreation, what they want to offer. And so that's why we go out and talk to the folks. Image here, while we looked at all the parks that Lee County operates, a few of the ones that City Sanford has as well. As you can tell, as you would expect, most of them are in and around the limits of Sanford, except for Lett Family Park, which sits out to the east a little bit there in Broadway. And then while Park and Rec doesn't have any facilities on Deep or Cape Fear River, there are some outfitters and some canoe kayak launches out there that play well into recreation. And on this map, there's a big yellow star there, which is where the future sports complex is currently slated to go as well. So we've identified that. Everything in green are either county parks or Sanford parks. Everything in purple are schools. We pull schools into this study as well because they do provide recreation components. Joseph mentioned the survey, the random stratified survey we did May through early July. Our goal was to get 400 respondents from around the county. We ended up with 416. And out of that, these were the top 10 facilities or amenities that folks who answered that survey said they felt that were needed here in the county. Now, you may wonder why ball fields and soccer and things of that nature aren't on there. Both talking to our survey consultant and our belief is that with the sports complex already having a bond, already going through due diligence, everybody felt that they were wasting a vote on that sports complex and those facilities. And they focused more on passive, family-oriented type activities. We've seen an uptick this in some of our plans, particularly over the last 18 months with the pandemic, where folks are looking to get outside where maybe they can distance a little more. So this plays into that effect. Those top three, the top two show up in just about every survey we do of trails and greenways. On the programs and activities, this sort of helps support those activities as well. Folks wanting to be out, getting fit, doing wellness programs, just being outdoors. We did 2 public meetings in June, had about 100 people, in-person open house meetings at Sloan and Kiwanis Family. They pretty much supported a lot of this similar data. And it was great to see families out there, as well as we had a lot of, particularly at Kiwanis Family, we had a lot of teens come through and bring their friends. Now, as with all system-wide plans, these do take a little time, anywhere from 6 to 12 months, sometimes longer. The Parks Department needs to continue rolling along, so there are other plans and other policies and things moving forward. You had the 4 plans that you master planned in 2018 that are now almost all done. Horton and Kiwanis Children's are finished, and OT Sloan is close, and Temple is on the way, so we kept tabs on those. You have the pool project that came about to reopen Horton Pool, and then, of course, the sports complex that you've gone through the due diligence, purchased the property, and are now getting ready to move into design for that. So taking everything we got in from the survey, which formed the basis of a needs assessment, and some of you may have seen that document. It's about 100 pages thick. It's sort of the back end of our master plan update. So that focuses on what's needed here in Lee County. We take the information from what we've gathered as we've gone around to all the parks, and we've come up with a series of additional recommendations, and these will, after this evening, will be tailored into more of a near-term, mid-term, long-term part of our plan update. Trail connectivity is that came up big in our surveys and in all our conversations, and except for the little bit of Ender Iron Furnace Greenway and the trails you have at Sand Leak, there's definitely a need to increase trails, not only for exercise, but for connectivity in Lee County. We recommend that a county-wide Greenway master plan be completed, which would also include a Blue Way. So up and down Deep River and Cape Fear, Blue Ways, particularly in North Carolina, are becoming a little more favorable. In certain counties where it is difficult to run trails, they've become more Blue County type or Blue Way type trails. Looking for locations for indoor multi-purpose community center, you have Bob Hales right now. There is some room there to expand and get into a little more fitness or exercise equipment, which many folks who responded said was important to them. But in terms of equitable distribution, if you remember our map early on, everything's focused in and around Sanford, so we lack some equitable distribution of facilities north and south and west. So looking for locations over the next 10 years to add some community center space north and south of Sanford. One of the biggest things that was apparent our first day when we visited in the rain, no less, which was a good time to go visit parks to observe drainage, ADA, or accessibility in all the parks, was a big issue everywhere. Getting from a parking space to a playground to a building, getting connected to a neighborhood. So all the parks lack quite a bit of that, and it's important that that's probably be a more immediate focus to assess that and get that addressed. Every park facility, some type of programming that Joseph and his staff can start to do, particularly focusing on healthy and active living and wellness, and senior Olympic opportunities throughout. And some of the new things, particularly the new trends with more disc golf, pickleball. If you've seen the push in pickleball with, I was here for one of those meetings with the Park and Rec Board, so that was exciting. But pickleball is certainly a hot trend right now, and being able to add that at the Children's as well as OT Sloan. And fitness clusters of fitness stations are gaining popularity. I just have one line in there for the sports complex. Not a lot to say about that right now, because that is moving forward. But you need to look at the other 6 parks that did not get master planned in 2018 and start to remaster plan many of those, and then start to, the recommendation would not be to try to do all 4 at one time, but to spread those out over time period to update those with many of the, with some of the accessibility issues, new equipment, and new opportunities. And then looking at locations, once again, northwest, south, to develop some smaller parks or provide facilities for folks in those parts of the county. Updating the facilities at San Lee, there are certainly several things that can be done out there. And then potentially looking at some destination facilities that could bring in some revenue, a little bit of revenue for the non-Lee County residents. And we've seen this, certainly we've seen the popularity of the splash pad at Kiwanis Family. So, you know, could look at another one of those elsewhere in the county, cross country, opportunities to bring in schools for meets. And on the operations side, we make a recommendation with many of our clients to reach out, because partnerships are important right now with funding, maintenance, operations, and being able to spread the wealth. So, you know, gathering regular meetings now that Sanford it appears to be getting back into the park and recreation business a little bit, bringing them on board, making sure that you know, coordinating or partnering with them, as well as a little more partnerships with the schools, libraries, co-ops. All the groups listed here are groups that provide services and opportunities that speak to both recreation, environment, all the things that fall under parks and recreation. You also have the Triangle Land Conservancy, another potential partner. They certainly have some large acreage here in the county and around. Opportunities for programming with them would be good. Continue to maintain good park management, operations, maintenance, and do it equitably throughout, not just focus on 1 or 2 parks. So not just focusing on the new parks that are out there, but even going back to the existing parks and at least getting those up to speed while we look at master plans for those. There's a goal, there's a National Recreation Park Association goal where they have a 10-minute rule, which in that one they look for 10 minutes to be able to walk to a facility. Obviously in a county that's a little difficult to do. So we play with that a little bit, and we say it's a 15 to 20-minute walk or drive to get from a household to some type of a green space. And then be able to provide that funding to maintain the level of service standards that Lee County is, the residents are looking to get. We met with the Park and Recreation Commission. I think one of our observations was that there may need to be a little more vision or goals, some more reestablishment for what their role is, because that type of a support group is important to have a successful Park and Recreation department, making sure that they're available to help make decisions, go out, take the pulse, talk to the folks, help develop some of the programming that goes on, and to develop some type of a work plan that they can work from. So not that they're just showing up once a month to hear Joseph or another staff member talk, but to be a group that's works well together. We've seen a little bit of a change in how the county is getting some of their word out about programming, you know, going from a printed bulletin to a little more on the social media. That's a good step, and I think they're seeing that in the numbers that they're getting in some of their programming now. But continue to increase that community outreach. We propose that Joseph might get out and about to the different parks, you know, meet with folks as much as he likes to talk with folks, and just once again, you know, hear from the people, let them know who he is, what the Parks and Recreation Department has to offer. We've seen this work successfully in many municipalities. This plan update, it's important that it gets, I guess, making sure that it's compatible and it works with all other plans that are done. So any other municipal plans, long-range plans, transportation plans, whether they're local or at a state level, making sure everybody's aware that you do have a park and recreation plan, and that those policies and those ordinances all work well together. And then some things to consider, particularly this body, and we've just been through talked about the budget and where you're at, so that's important with operations, because as you increase recreation facilities and offerings, you bring some of the parks up to grade a little bit. You've got a sports complex that could come into play in the next 3-4 years. So with those increased facilities, we have increased budgets, CIPs, maintenance, more staffing needs, equipment, insurance cost, all that just needs to be considered as year to year as you look at park and recreation. And so, one of the things we like to say, if you have parks and facilities and you keep those maintained on a good regular basis, that translates into safer park environments, which translates into more park usage, and it just keeps going around in circles there, because the more users you have, the more eyes on a park. Some of the parks that may not have as many users because folks feel a little unsafe there, suddenly they are back and they are using those parks. So we did do some very quick concepts for the 6 parks that were not in the master plan. And this would be just the stepping stone to take it into more of a master plan. But at Buchanan Park, where you have the 2 levels pretty much, the ball field sits up street side, and then you have a more passive area in the bottom part of it along the creek. Introducing series of loop trails out there, realigning the main access in, just because it's if you've been to that park, it's not fun coming out, let alone blind curves turning in. So potentially sliding that out a little bit so you're a little better in the curve there for visibility. Upgrading the play equipment, replacing that shelter that right now you can tell that's where all the water runs in the park, based on the crevices and the shifting concrete pad there. And then you've got a whole area there of looking for some more passive opportunities and adding some more shelters. Dalrymple, similar, putting loop trails in there. Probably the biggest thing here is looking at some of the vehicular circulation, designating the parking, getting connectivity out to the sidewalks in the neighborhoods. This was one that we actually shifted a couple things since the Park and Rec Board, where we had received some comments. The existing playground that's out by Globe Street that has been deemed, we've been told it's the most accessible playground in the system, but since you have to step over a barrier to get into the playground after you have walked across the grass to get there, and surfacing's not that great. We wanted to propose an expansion of that, but then we decided to flip that and actually relocate that playground north of Ingram Center between there and the ball field, and move a flexible sports court out towards the street side that ties everything together a little better, adding a fitness cluster in here as well. Kiwanis Family, most of the focus is over by the gazebo, and some of this came about too when we were involved in Kiwanis Family Park for the city, but taking that area by the gazebo and incorporating some gardens, some more trails over there, some other venues that could go with the gazebo as far as when you're renting that space. And then better connectivity back into the greenway, but taking the fitness equipment on the other side of the stream and bringing it back into the park a little bit, upgrading those shelters, and then doing something with the stream to help with all of the flooding that help control it. It's not going to eliminate it, but better control it so that you don't have trails underwater all the time. Lett Family Park, if you've been out there, there's no shade unless you're in the one shelter, so adding shade shelters around. Once again, walking, designating our parking and our circulation, getting accessibility to the playgrounds, and then looking at that northeast corner, which offers up some opportunities for maybe some disc golf or some fitness out in that part of the woods. And San Lee, pretty much just a total upgrade master plan there, bringing a lot of those facilities up to current grade, particularly on the ADA side, redoing that playground, moving it away from the campground. The campground's been fairly successful, so there's been some desire to add some more group sites out there as a revenue source. And then just updating the wayfinding and just the general being able to get around that particular park. And then Tramway, our focus, just the easiest thing there was to continue that particular loop trail, more of an accessible playground out there. And then up along Tramway where Park and Rec offices are right now, eliminating that particular facility, as we've talked, where there's potential to move it out to property at O.T. Sloan. and then convert that particular space into other types of recreation. You've got all this residential now that's going to be under construction across Tramway, and they will need a place to recreate. So whether potential for a dog park, group picnicking facilities, more of a multi-generational type exercise fitness that's much more expansive than just some of the smaller clusters, are opportunities for that park in that area. So moving the plan forward after this evening, we're presenting this plan to this board here. This will set the stage for the next 9 to 10 years, but we're as part of that plan, we ask that staff and the Park and Rec Commission review it every year as well. So the adoption of this plan, it doesn't commit you to everything in the plan, but it just commits the fact that you have a working document moving forward. And then this document will also help, not only upstates it, but helps bring a few extra points when you're chasing after some of those grant opportunities, particularly with PARTF and LWCF. So that's what these recommendations help with that, because when you go through that process and select a project, it needs to be in this plan update. So the staff, along with the Park and Rec Commission, would then work together, prioritize those projects to bring before this board as you move forward, and balance those needs with your 3 to 5 year CIP. And at the same time, continue to research, look for grant opportunities. They're the ones that are out there every year, but they're always new grants. Everybody's jumped on board with ARPA in the last year, so we're seeing that in a lot of municipalities using that for park as well as greenways. But the overriding goal is to continue to improve the quality of life and access to quality recreation and green space for everybody here in Lee County. So that's 9 to 10 months in about 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any questions of Mr. Wood?
Concerning the swimming pool, when I first came on the board, we had a young lady that came here and made a couple impassioned pleas for improving or providing a containment around the pool. Was any of that considered or not?
So we had some discussions, particularly the night we were at Sloan Park. And I think that what we wanted to do was well, first of all, I think the aquatics, when they did that survey, that was before Horton Pool came back online. So that could address the need for water and aquatics. When you're looking at, covering pools, you do have to consider that expense of, heating that space and how long will that, so are you looking at an additional 30 days, 60 days? So we didn't have it particularly in here at this point, felt like we needed to see how Horton came on board, and then if there was still a need that folks wanted something to extend past Labor Day, before Memorial Day, and what those cost implications are in terms of, building that structure and what you get for that. So we did have some discussions. For now, we don't have it in that particular plan as a definite recommendation.
Did that person ever come to your committee or your board and talk about that?
Yes, she did.
Okay.
I will just add to what John was saying, that the fourth high priority item, number 4, was an outdoor swimming facility, which we're addressing now with Horton Pool. But nothing was mentioned about indoor. It was all outdoor.
I'm not familiar enough with what she was talking about. Could the Horton Pool provide the kinds of things that she was talking about? Swimming lessons and all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. It would give Parks and Rec another facility to offer swimming lessons. But what she was referring to was more of a year-round, 12 months, doing swimming lessons and swim meets year-round.
And it's just the price tag's too big right now, I guess, what we're saying.
Well, it is a hefty price tag.
I guess. The other request I would make is, are you planning on giving us a list of priorities for our January meeting when we start getting into the budgets? I mean, these look like really great things. Obviously, we can't do them all. Are you going to focus on what you hope to see in the budget this year?
Absolutely.
No.
Dr. Crumpton knows what happens when you ask me about projects.
Yeah, well,
So does Ms. Minter.
at least we want to be respectful and say we've considered it. Okay,
But
thank
yeah,
you.
Absolutely. And it was one of the slides, this plan is going to have a 3 to 5 year, CIP plan. So we don't anticipate knocking out 10 years worth of work in 1 year. Although it'd be great, but we do have,
His plans will be in the CIP.
yeah.
I got you.
It won't be in our operational budget. He's coming forward with a CIP plan.
Any other questions from Mr. Wood and Mr. Keel?
Excuse me, how many parks do we actually have?
9.
And are they all listed by address on the website?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Lubbock?
I will make a comment. When you ride by the Kiwanis Children's Park, there's a lot of activity there with that new
Yes, it is.
equipment and stuff, so.
A lot of
children-
pickleball.
A lot of children, a lot of adults. Well, that bucket dumps the water on top of it.
Now, I'm talking about the children's park, where the old pool was.
Oh, yeah.
The new equipment was put in there. But that's good when you put something in place and people are using what you spend taxpayers' money on.
Commissioner Sharp, any questions? You sit on the Recreation Commission. You've covered all this. This is the second time. Hold on. Commissioner LaValle?
Yeah, just to go back to what Commissioner Carver was asking about covering the pool, it's my understanding that it would be an upfront expense, but that it could bring revenue too, because swim meets would be happening there more regularly, and that it would be a source of revenue too. So I was just curious about that.
It definitely would be a source of revenue. I don't think it would potentially be a money maker. It would have to be subsidized, but yes, it could be a revenue source.
Okay. It would be something, I mean, I'd be interested in at least reviewing, seeing what options we have with that. Not to take away from the Horton pool, but I think that they're just different. They're different.
I was asked last week about some ARPA funding projects, so I threw that out.
Okay.
You're not alone. Commissioner Connect.
As part of exercising year-round, swimming is great, right? Swimming is a great activity, so
It is.
it'd be great if you could do it year-round. Thanks.
Okay, well, the request is board approval to adopt the new comprehensive master plan for Lee County Parks and Recreation. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion's been made to approve the board, to adopt the new comprehensive master plan for Lee County Parks and Recreation. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is premium pay discussion. Lisa and Jen.
Good evening. I would like to introduce to you at this point Jen Waterhouse, who is our new physical recovery manager. She started with us December 1st. She will be working with you guys and myself, the county manager, and all of our department directors to try to help us get through and figure out how to spend our ARPA funds. So we're happy to have her. Before starting with us, Jen recently accomplished a major task. She finished her dual master's program, concluding with a master's in business administration and a master's in finance. Additionally, Jen worked with the Department of Social and Health Services in Washington State as a grant analyst managing a federally funded substance abuse block grant for 2 years. We are very happy to have Jen here with us, and she was very instrumental in helping us put together what I'm fixing to present to you tonight. So wanted to give her a chance to be introduced to you guys and all. So, okay. Yeah. Okay, in your package of information, you have a group of papers paper-clipped together that include the premium pay policy, the PowerPoint that I'm fixing to go over, and then a couple other documents that we'll discuss in the end if you decide to to approve the premium pay. And I'm going to go ahead and apologize that somewhere during this I will say performance pay instead of premium pay. So that's been a bad habit for the last week and a half. So to start with, ARPA funds do authorize the allowance of premium pay to eligible workers performing essential work during the COVID-19 public health emergency. We have gone through and established and reviewed things and determined that eligibility includes that you must perform essential work during the pandemic, and that essential work is defined as work that is not performed while teleworking from a residence and involves regular in-person interaction with patients, the public, or coworkers of individuals performing the work, or regular handling of materials or items that were handled by patients, the public, or coworkers of the individuals performing the work. The eligibility period that we are looking at in this policy is from June 14th, 2020 to May 17th, 2021. That the May 17th date was then when we released the county under our state of emergency. We've gone through and surveyed all the department heads and their to look at their employees to tell us who teleworked during that time frame, and then whether or not employees met the other criteria. Elected positions are not eligible to be paid the premium pay from the ARPA funds. And then employees whose total wages would exceed 150% of the state's average annual wage of $51,010, or the equivalent of $76,515, will not be eligible under the ARPA funds and will be compensated through other funding sources. So if we have employees who exceed that limit, their premium pay would come from the general fund in our proposal. The proposed awards for full-time employees, if they were hired on or before August 14th, 2020, I'm sorry, I had to stop and think how we did this. It looked different. It's $1,500 is the amount. If they were hired during that next time frame, they would receive 75% of that, or $1,125. The next section is 50%, $750, and then if they were hired on February 15th or before May 17th, they would only receive 25% or $375. We anticipate that employees would clear $1,000, $750, $500, and $250 roughly is what we're looking to try to do there. Temporary employees are a little bit different. You can't just look at when they were hired because they all work different hours. So you can see in your presentation copy there the number of hours that we're looking at people working during that period to have qualified, and their amounts would be $500, $250, or $125. And those would come out to about $400, $300, no, $400, $200, and then 75, if I remember correctly. Thank you, Jen. The costs for the premium pay for the employees who met the ARPA requirements were estimating to be $388,917, and the cost to the general fund for the employees who did not meet the ARPA requirements would be approximately $230,180. So the next steps would be to ask that you consider the premium pay policy, and depending on what you decide on that will depend on whether or not we move ahead to the other items. I'll be glad to answer any questions. That's a very brief overview of the policy. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Lisa?
Can you tell me what categories of people are being recognized here?
All employees would be considered for this, all our regular employees and our temps.
Where do we find, surely we find most of the people in the health department, or not true, or how?
We've gone, okay, we have, so you mean between ARPA and the general fund?
No, he's meaning who qualified as an essential employee.
All county employees qualify as essential employees.
Because we made the designation at the beginning of the pandemic that all county employees were essential, or we wouldn't need them working.
Right, that's exactly right.
So we made that call early. That was part of our CARES Act funding designations. But when you think about it, you know, you probably think about frontline people like the emergency management folks, health department, you know, social services, and you know, these people were dealing directly with the public. But then you forget about senior services, the library, you know, and then Parks and Rec. We started back with Parks and Rec, and we started seeing people during this time frame. And then my office, you know, we're out seeing all those people and have to support those people without administration. Those people don't get support, they don't get paid. So, you know, we made the designation very early that all employees were essential employees.
The biggest reason you have as much coming from general fund as you do is the teleworking. Because even in June, the time period we're looking at, you still had a lot of employees who had to telework because of the renovations or other reasons. So those people are coming from the general fund. You have quite a few people over the $76,000 limit. Those will be funded out of the general fund. They're essential employees, but because of the salary limit, because ARPA funds are targeted to the moderate and low income. So that's why they put that stipulation in there, the 150% rule. So we've got several people who are coming out of the general fund for that reason. They're still essential employees. So we said we would take the funding from there instead of from ARPA. You have very few employees did not fall into one of the categories of not working regularly with the public, but they're still essential employees. IT is one. They don't necessarily work with the public or come in contact with it, but we would have been in a mess without IT being behind us. I mean, we couldn't have even worked from home if we hadn't had our IT department there and stuff, so.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. The bottom line on how much money we were going to invest in that, where did that come from?
Well, 388,000 of it's gonna come from the ARPA funds.
But I mean, where did you set the limit as far as the total compensation? In other words, you can go up to $13 an hour. You're looking at 763 hours, $500 is less than $1 an hour, right? And I know,
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting we should go to $13 an hour, but how did you decide what the cut line was gonna be and how much you wanted to invest in?
We pretty much looked at what other jurisdictions had done, from the bonus standpoint, or the premium pay standpoint, and just thought that we would be in line with that. And the school systems, they've pretty much fallen in line with these numbers as well, so. And, to take into account taxing up, that's why, we were thinking that, at that top level, we wanted the employees to clear $1,000. So how much did we have to add to that to tax it up so that they would clear that $1,000? So, that's how we ended up with 1,500, was that consideration, taxing and all the other benefits that have to come out of the pay.
And then for the temps, I mean, it's a complicated, a regular full-time employee works 2,080 hours. So when we came up with amounts, we had $1,000 as the top for the regular employees to clear. We came up with 400, so I took 40% of 2,080 hours, and then we were looking at 11 out of 12 months. So then I did that fraction on the hours to get to those start of the hours for the temps to have to work to be considered. So if it was roughly 40% of what we have to work as a full-time employee is the start of those hours to come up with at least having to work 763 to get the full amount. That was
Thank
a
you.
quick explanation of that, sorry.
Any other questions of Lisa?
I move to approve the premium pay policy plan.
Motion's been made to approve the premium policy plan as currently being developed by staff. Any other questions? Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, a couple more things I need you to do. We have the option of either paying, well, you have three options. You could either pay this Friday, December 17th. We can either pay Wednesday, December 22nd, or you can pay it out sometime in the new year. So I need to know which date you prefer that we go ahead and that we pay this.
When do you recommend?
I'm sorry, give me those dates again.
Friday, December 17th, this coming Friday.
I recommend the 22nd.
I recommend the 17th.
Either one's going to impact my staff the same way, so I will, totally whatever the board decides.
For the 17th. Give it to them as soon as possible.
Motion's been made to approve the 17th of December to pay out the premium pay that we just adopted the policy. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Okay, two more
And
things,
two
I'm sorry.
more thing. I'm
Two
looking.
more. I need you to approve the grant project ordinance amendment number 1 that's in your package, and that's simply allocating the $388,917 of ARPA money in that project ordinance.
Move to approve. Motion's been made to approve the grant ordinance amendment number 1 that's in your packet. Any further discussion, questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
last
And then
one.
the budget amendment,
Yes.
12-13-21-11.
All these rules, we're just trying to make sure we're covering ourselves, so.
Remember, she had a good read.
She's worked hard on this. She and Jen have worked
Yes.
real hard on this the last week, 2 weeks.
Let's just get it over with.
Do I hear a motion to approve budget amendment 12-13? Motion's been made. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, and I will tell you, we will be coming back in January with the general fund budget amendment, but we felt like there's money to cover those salaries at this point, and felt like we could do that after the checks were actually written and could have better breakdown of the numbers for you for the general fund. So, thank you very much for your cooperation, and on behalf of the employees, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
That's a lot of work. Next item on the agenda, new business. Number 8D, resolution supporting the passage of North Carolina Heartbeat Bill. Just for the general public knowledge, I placed it on the agenda as prerogative of the chair and working with other counties that are moving through with the same resolution.
I make a
Madam
motion.
Vice, yes, Madam Vice Chair.
I was just gonna say, I make a motion that we approve the resolution supporting the passage of a North Carolina heartbeat bill.
Resolution supporting passage of the North Carolina Heartbeat Bill, motion was made. Any questions, discussion?
I have a few things.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair. First of all, I think this is beyond the scope of the board to address this issue. I don't know about you guys, but I was elected to bring jobs, build schools, support teachers, and the staff, and to keep them working here to be a supplement that you guys did not choose to give them during a pandemic. And also, I think I was elected to, by my constituents to help lower the taxes here in Lee County, which I've supported twice. As far as the heartbeat bill, as far as I know, the North Carolina General Assembly has not had a public hearing on this, and if they wanted the support of the people, they'd have a public hearing. Kind of like we didn't have a public hearing on the redistricting of the maps like y'all approved. Kind of like that. The only way that I can support this bill or this resolution, but the only way I can support it is if you consider Medicaid expansion, either a separate resolution for Medicaid expansion, this board supporting that, or attach it to this, whatever. But I figured if we're dabbling in issues that we really can't do anything about, such as the heartbeat bill, and abortion, we might as well dabble in Medicaid expansion as well. It just feels like to me, just like you guys, I want the babies to be born, but I don't want them, you want them to be born, but you don't want to take care of them after they're born. The poor, the people who can't take care of them, families in need, I think Medicaid expansion would do that. So I would say, since this is not in the scope of the board, I think if we have issues like this coming up in the future, you need to pick up your phone, call your legislator, your congressman, or your senator, because I don't think this ain't what people in Lee County expect us as county commissioners to be getting involved with. So with that said, I think I know how this is going to go, but I'm going to make a motion that we attach Medicaid expansion to this resolution. And, because we can dabble in state and national level issues, we might as well do it with Medicaid expansion as well. And I'm making a motion at this time
Motion to amend the current resolution.
by adding Medicaid expansion, support for Medicaid expansion.
Question?
There is a motion already on the board.
We have a motion on the floor, but he's making the motion to amend it to include Medicaid expansion. Any further discussion on the amendment to the resolution?
Is this something that they're asking us to do, or several counties already put their input on, or?
I've been approached by other counties, yes, and there are other counties that have done it.
Okay, so it's a county kind of thing, not a, they're asking for our opinion.
It's a resolution establishing the feelings of this board. We have an amendment to the initial motion. Any further discussion on the amendment?
I just want clarity on what you said last. Other counties have attached that type of amendment?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we were talking about the original resolution. There wasn't an attachment for Medicaid on
I
it.
thought that was, the question was, had other counties.
I misunderstood his question.
So that has not happened that you know of?
Correct. Just a strict resolution on the heartbeat bill. But right now, we have a motion to amend it to add Medicaid expansion. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye to the amendment of the resolution to expand Medicaid.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. And a show of hands, all the ayes, please. 3, and those opposed? Okay. Back to the original motion. Resolution supporting the passage of North Carolina heartbeat bill. Any further discussion, questions?
Well, yes, I have comments regarding that. You know, I take great pride in coming in trying to do the county's business, not as a Democrat or any other party member. I come as a taxpayer and a person who's genuinely interested in the betterment of Lee County for all citizens. And this situation that we are being asked to support is worse than that love letter you read back in January of 2021 when you took over as chair. The love letter about Trump. That was uncalled for and unnecessary, and it wasn't directed to this full board, or we would have gotten a copy of it, and we never did. But even in this situation, you know, sometimes things are just personal and private. For example, I've not asked a single board member if you've gotten your shot. But I'd be willing to offer a resolution tonight and ask you to support the resolution that any and all elected officials ought to be vaccinated or removed from the board. Would you support that?
That's not the resolution we're working on at the
I
moment.
didn't ask you. I know what we're working on. I asked a simple question. Would you support it?
Absolutely not.
Oh, I didn't think you would because it violates your rights, as if what we're voting on doesn't violate someone else's rights. You know, this is nothing more than a political stunt for 2022 or whenever the courts decide. This is not about what you think of the people in Lee County. It's about what you think, period. Not you. I'm talking about all of you in support of this resolution.
I will have to disagree because I've had a lot of constituents talk to me about this, and I've explained to them that in this position, we don't have the authority to make those kinds of rules, nor am I
agree.
saying that we should. However, sitting in this seat, we have the right to speak for higher moral issues, and that's just how.
But you would not vote to remove yourself if you haven't got vaccinated.
Those are completely different issues.
Well, the same thing applies. It's a right that the individual has, just like the right you claim you have.
Well,
How's it not?
it's here. The conversation is it a right?
We're not talking about the conversation. You're just talking about one thing, and that is what you have on the agenda tonight.
Yes, and you're trying to equate it to something else, and I don't think that those two are equal.
How can it not be?
I just don't see them as equal.
You don't want to see it.
Could I offer something? we talk about the citizens in Lee County. The citizens we fail to think about are the babies that are in the womb. Okay, so, yeah, I know, but that's a fact. So I think the hard attitude behind this heartbeat bill, no pun intended, has to do with a moral conscience about whether or not it's appropriate to elevate the woman's right above the right of the baby to survive. So I would offer that as a reasonable and logical argument.
I would just like to add one more thing. I just feel like if any of you guys or ladies had a daughter that was raped by some horrible person, I think you'd break your neck to get down and get an abortion. That's just how I feel.
You know,
it's
That's not a
interesting,
question,
yeah.
that's a statement.
I understand. I have a lady that lives next, well, I know a lady who is the product of rape, and her opinion is that probably her mother made the right choice. But again, I guess the only thing that I'm asking you to think about is there are two human beings involved in this decision. One is the baby that's in utero, the other is the mother. And it's not an easy decision, I understand.
Yeah, one is the mother is hopefully making a contribution, paying taxes, and the other hasn't even got out of the womb yet. And I don't take personal positions on what that mother should or should not do. That's not my call. But I do find it interesting that we take up the time tonight to debate this issue when none of you have the right to tell that person what to do. It's already going before the courts. You're so impatient, but again, that goes back to what I said. This is all a political stunt. I should have expected it. I'm now more convinced than ever that you can equate or decide that it's not the same thing that if I ask you, have you got your vaccination? You refuse to answer because you know you have the right. But that person doesn't have a right simply because morally you think that it's wrong. Hypocrites.
Any further discussion?
I think my hardest part about this is I think most of you know how I stand in my faith. But to sit here and have to call for a vote for us to put our opinions out there for county people, when they're not even asking for this. You know, we did the same thing to the school board when we were going to send them a letter. I don't think we need to get in people's business and tell them how to vote unless they ask or they recommend. Like I say, I know where my faith stands on this issue, and I know how I have to vote tonight. But I think as commissioners, we just don't need to throw our opinions out every time something comes up.
Only when it's political advantageous.
Well, there again, when people come to me, I hope they know that I'm gonna try to vote my best, and I told them in every interview I did, I serve God first, and I'm gonna ask for his guidance. But, he's not gonna ask for Democrat or Republican if we make it there. So that's just the decision, you know, I'll have to make tonight.
I'd really like to address the issue of applying motives to a motion. The motion either stands on its merits or not. And to say that the reason that we're bringing this is a political thing
It
is not correct. I will say that because I'm in support of the motion. And the reason I would vote for it has to do with the greater issue of the culture and morals of the nation, and being in a position to have some minor influence possibly on the legislature is a privilege. And I think it represents the best standards that we can have as an elected body. So please don't characterize my motivations as only political.
I
That would-
stand by what I said, and I meant it.
And I stand by what I said, and that's incorrect.
Gentlemen,
Good for you.
Let's call the question.
Call the question. The question has been called. All those in favor of the resolution supporting passage of the North Carolina Heartbeat Bill, state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No.
Motion carries. Thank you. County managers report, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to start with the COVID report. Mr. Kane sent me a little report today. Someone mentioned earlier that we were having an uptick in cases. We hit a low in cases in North Carolina, in Lee County back on the week of 11/21. And the last 2 weeks, we've seen about a doubling of our numbers. So we were down to about, around 30 cases the week of 11/21, and now we're actually tripling. We're up almost at 90 cases of the week of 12/5. And so from what I've heard from over the weekend, cases were up again. So typical with when you see the ebbs and flows of the virus, it's up, down, up, down. So we've been down for about 6 or 7 weeks, and now you see that trend starting to inch back up. So we'll be watching it. Mr. Kane and his staff seem to be a little concerned about the trend, so we'll be working with him to see what happens over the next couple weeks. In my report, starting with the ongoing projects, the courthouse work is getting really close to being finished. Just the upstairs where the old Register of Deeds and the district attorney's rooms are still being worked on. The jury chambers as well being worked on. That project's almost finished. We're still heavily involved in the project at the Government Center. Pretty much complete with phase 1 and 2. We're into phase 3, and probably will take all of March to get finished with everything at the Government Center. I don't know if I mentioned at the last meeting, but we were asked by the judges to change our security protocols at the courthouse now that we've done the renovations. So there'll be a new card system going in place. There'll be limited access to the courthouse, mainly just through the front doors. So the doors that face each other in the courtyard, in the historic courthouse, and in the new what we call the new courthouse, those will be the only entrances for the public to access the buildings. Some staff that works in the building will have access to other doors, but the general public, the judges want going through those doors and wants them going through the metal detectors. So we'll see how that goes. That'll be implemented after the first of the year, after we get the equipment for the gate into the parking lot there. Speaking of parking lots, except for a little bit of landscaping and some electrical issues with lighting, the parking lot projects are finished at all 4 locations. As you drove in today, you saw that the McSwain Center here was recently sealed, coated. Looked very nice. Staff here is very excited. We have got the contractor back at the Bob Hale Center. They're almost finished with the issues there. We met with McGill and Associates on Wednesday last week. After I had done my report, the design for the pool will be finished and should be going out to bid this week. And hopefully we'll have bids back in hand in January so that the board can start making decisions on a contractor. And then we're pretty much finished with the Parks Master Plans Phase 1. The reason I was saying no to Mr. Carver's question is we still have some issues at those 4 parks that we may have to address with funds that are remaining there. And that will probably be our priority for the parks for next year to get that stuff done. Plus we'll be hopefully working on design at the multi-sports complex. For those who made it out on Saturday morning, thank you. Thank you to the board members who showed up at the mountain bike park. I'm sure they were surprised to see me on a bike, but I've been practicing, so wasn't like I wasn't prepared for what was going on Saturday morning, but it was a great turnout. The staff out there counted over 300 people that showed up for the event. And really, we had a really good time and got a lot of great comments about the changes that were done, so I'm very excited. And, you know, the Black Diamond folks are about finished. They're back this week to do some minor finishing touches, and they'll be leaving at the end of the week. And then after the first of the year, Blue Ridge Trail Designs will be looking at the rest of the park on the hiking trails and the single track for the bikes. So, Mr. Chair, yes?
I just heard great, you know, the groups that were out there saying that's an impressive ride. And they were getting really excited about when the Black Diamond comes on, or Double Diamond, is that right? Double Black?
Yeah, the Double Diamond was not ready on Saturday.
No, but
The rain from.
They looked at it and they're like, wow.
It is a wow.
It is a wow. And,
Yeah, this 60-year-old won't be going down that one.
well, from where we started and how nervous they were about, oh, you're tearing everything to the wow. And I asked, can you do tournaments? Can you hold competitions? He's like, easily. This place is amazing. So.
Well,
Well
the
done.
thing that we got the most compliments on was the progression. So you started on the right side on the what we call the beginner line, and then you just work your way over to that double Black Diamond, and you know, you just bite off as much as you can chew. You know, and you know, hopefully you're smart enough to know what your limitations are. I know my limitations are those two runs on the right, and I'm sticking to them. So, but they're fun. And the ride back up is a decent ride. You get a good workout, though, going uphill. So I paid the price for it Sunday morning, but it was fun. And the bike club was out there with hamburgers and hot dogs. We appreciate them doing that and the support that they're already giving us. And they have a big following already, so it's very exciting for everybody. Upcoming events. We're about to hit the Christmas holiday. The offices will be closed December 23rd and 24th and 27th for Christmas. And then on December 31st, we'll be closed for New Year's. Remind the board that our meeting schedule has changed. In January, we're meeting on the 10th and the 24th with the budget retreat on the 27th and 28th. So I'd like to thank the commissioners for their support and all that you do for us and the staff. Hope everybody has a Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday, and look forward to seeing you all next year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad you're back safely today.
I know you were watching me.
Commissioner comments. Commissioner Lovick.
1 year on the board. It's been a fast year, hasn't it? It's been a fast year. Thank you, each one of you that we've worked together. You know, we have our differences, but that's part of being on any type of board that I've ever been on. You have your differences, but I think we've done great things. Thank you, staff, for working with this old country boy here. So hopefully, when things get normal, I promise each one of them that I'm gonna be out and see them, and that promise is still gonna stand. Like I say, the mountain bike trail the other day, pretty good walk too, wasn't it? Cameron and Bill and Kirk, good walk. So, and good to see people out at our parades. I mean, it was great to see Sanford Parade and the Broadway Parade. People were out and getting back, hopefully close to normal as we can, even though our numbers we just heard is going up. So, and I'd like to congratulate all our retirees. I think they're all gone, but congratulations to them and a new adventure in their life. And just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And as John said, we'll see you next year.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sharp.
Yeah, just another thing about the bike park. Thought it was interesting. We were out in the parking lot. You were there with us, and we saw several cars from different states, a couple from Georgia, New York, Florida, and we approached some of them, and they were bragging about our facility. And talked to Dr. Brian Smith from here in town, and he said he's been all up and down the East Coast riding these type of trails and whatnot, and he said there's none that are any better than what we have here, so I was proud to hear that.
Yeah, that's good to hear, huh?
Anything else, sir?
That's it.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Yes,
LaValle.
a couple updates. The Partnership for Children and Families met this month, And during the meeting, they reviewed the financial reports and some program updates. They have really been doing a lot these past few months. They have several different donation opportunities too for the holiday season, so consider giving to the Lee County Partnership for Children. And the North Carolina Child Fatality Task Force met last week and discussed several legislative goals that they're deciding on supporting. The subcommittees are in the process of making different recommendations for action items, and those will be voted on in January. And then lastly, the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council met tonight, but they met during our workshop, so I was not able to attend. But based on their agenda, they have adjusted the time that they meet. We will now be meeting virtually at 4 p.m. on the third Monday of the month. And those meetings are open to the public if anyone wanted to join in. And that's all I have. I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Everybody
Commissioner
Merry
Connect.
Christmas, Happy New Year, and everybody be safe in their travels. That's all.
Commissioner Carver?
Yeah, just wanted to mention that I'm trusting everyone has a Merry Christmas, remembering that we're celebrating the birth of Jesus, and that was just his first visit. So we're expecting him back again soon. We'll see how that goes. And again, Merry Christmas to everybody. I'm so thankful that we live in a community that express a variety of attitudes and thoughts, and the fact that we're open enough to be able to discuss them is important. We as Americans have that privilege. Religion falls in that category, Christianity, what you want to call it. Other things that we discuss here also do. And I'm just thankful that we have that forum to be able to discuss it, and we can walk away from one another still respecting each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, I need an addition to the public comments. This came through the email. I read it. I'm going to read it publicly. Mary Harris, 2702 Sunnybrook Drive, Sanford, North Carolina. Mary writes, I object to the resolution supporting House Bill 31. This is not your business. This is between a woman, her conscience, her doctor, and her God. Thank you sincerely, Mary Harris. And I apologize for not adding that to the public comments. Let me check my emails real quick. I'm sorry, that's the only one I got. Okay. I just want to say, on the 7th of December, we had the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. A remembrance because VFW Post 5631 is named in honor of U.S. Army Sergeant Stanley McLeod, who died at Hickam Army Airfield on that fateful morning. He earned the Legion of Merit for simply taking a Thompson machine gun, submachine gun. It's a .45 caliber. It's about accurate out to 100 yards. Well, let me rephrase that. It's accurate out to about 25 yards, and at 100 yards is maximum range. And he was engaging Japanese bombers. Unfortunately, he was hit by shrapnel and succumbed to his wounds. He is currently buried at Hickam Army Airfield in Hawaii. And we had a very nice time with his niece and her husband. Brought out a lot of his mementos and presented them to the public. I do want to commend the Lumberton High School Junior ROTC Color Guard that came to honor the 80th anniversary or remembrance of Pearl Harbor on behalf of their school for allowing them to come all the way up from Lumberton. The mountain bike, the Gravity Park at San Lee, it was amazing. The comments we got, very positive, very upbeat. I did make a comment regarding the fact that here you have a government entity that shuts down a well-liked facility in April and then turns around and invests $100,000 in taxpayer money to recreate it, build it even better, and have it done by December. In such a short period of time, I commend the board for its support. I commend the Parks and Recs for their support in building and following through, the manager for finding the right people to make it happen, because there's a lot of happy mountain bikers, not only in Lee County, but all over the southeast. So just giving you a heads up on that. You'll probably see a big crowd there on a regular basis because it is a major draw. That said, I wish everyone, each and every one of you, a Merry Christmas and a happy, healthy, and prosperous New Year. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion's been made to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are now adjourned. Thank you.